Greetings and welcome to Crazytown Elementary School Presidential Debate. I'm Sophia from Miss Brady's class and will serve as a moderator. Today's debate will be structured in a town hall format with questions posed by you, the students. Now, please join me in welcoming the candidates for your new president, Eddie Grantwood and Caitlin Parker. Welcome to you both. Let's get right to it with questions from your fellow students, who've each given us their name and a little something about themselves. The first question comes from Brendan, who's afraid of the dark, but still feels that zombies are awesome.
You could describe your candidacy in 3 words. What would those 3 words be?
Well, before we even get started, I'd like to thank the Crazytown Elementary Election Commission, the entire student body, and my opponent for what I'm confident will be an illuminating, constructive conversation. And if I could describe my candidacy in 3 words, I would do so as follows. For too long, our student body has been divided into factions of the haves and the have-nots. And under my leadership, all students will have the equal opportunity to achieve their dreams.
Before we get started, I'd like to thank the Crazytown Elementary School Commission, the entire student body, and my opponent for what I am confident will be an illuminating, constructive conversation. I'd also like to thank the Tooth Fairy, someone my opponent did not mention, presumably because she is not a true believer. Finally, unlike my opponent, I will comply with Brian's 3-word limit and describe my candidacy as follows. My goals include.
The second question comes from Dawn, who this one time saw a PG-13 movie while her parents weren't home.
I love tater tots. What is your stance on tater tots? To reiterate, I love tater tots.
An excellent question, Dawn. As you can see, over the last decade, school lunches have seen a disturbing decline in the overall quantity of tots. I pledge to reinstate the legislation known as a lot of tots, which requires by law that all lunch trays adhere to my perpetually plentiful pile of potato perfection plan. Ladies and gentlemen, these are difficult times, but make no mistake, I will win the war on taterism.
Look, I'm not going to beat around the potato bush. Tater tots poll at 99.4%. That's a higher approval rating than ice cream trucks. In other words, if you hate tots, you hate America. And if you don't hate America, unless it's opposite day. Wait, is it opposite day?
It is not opposite day.
Then I love America. My point is more tots. The better off, of course, but do we honestly believe that we need more cafeteria bureaucracy? Under my administration, you'll say, what's up to having the power into your hands. Under my Lunchbox Lovers program, the choice is yours. Want to bring a wheelbarrow of tots? The choice is yours. That's what freedom looks like. It's time that we just leave behind days of cardboard grade pizza, half-thawed green beans, and worst of all, and I hate to use this word, but milk. Instead, we the people can decide what's for lunch, be it tater tots, corn dog Lunchables, and especially, and most importantly of all, fruit by the foot.
The next question comes from Brendan, whose career goals include Batman.
Girls are gross.
Thank you, Brendan. Gender issues are a critical part of this election. And as a fellow boy, I thank you for not only bringing it up, but also not being a stupid girl. Girls are indeed gross. And that will always be the case, despite what my big brother Jimmy says. Which is why, on day 1 of my administration, I will repeal the Students' Council's short-sighted verdict in Awesome Girls versus Silly Boys.
Yet again, my opponent is on the wrong side of history. Awesome Girls versus Silly Boys is our generation's most influential ruling, which is why I will throw my full support behind it and ensure the CDC eradicates every strain of cootie and call for punitive damages pursuant to the yanking of pigtails.
That's outrageous. Pigtail yanking has been in a place since our forefathers. You take that away, what's next? Our water balloons? I'll give you my water balloons when you pry them from my cold, wet hands.
We'll need to move on to the next question.
Sophia, before we do, I'd like to point out that my opponent is a girl and therefore, by the transitive property of gender, totally gross.
And I'd like to point out that My opponent is a boy, and in a few years he'll do a total 180 and try to impress me with cheap cologne, while I reject him for someone with a driver's license and stubble.
I'm sorry, but we need to move on. The next question comes from Dawn, who drew this picture all by herself.
What is your stance on the growing opinion that Timmy should take a shower?
A fine question. I believe this issue is a bacterial one, and I speak for both candidates when I say Timmy should definitely take a shower.
Us don't always agree on everything, but we can set aside our differences and reach across the aisle to work on a solution together because, simply put, Timmy smells terrible.
And for our next question, we turn to our Twitter feed. @ChunkyMonkey12 asks, Yo, trolls, totes lols, ROFL, DM me with pics, #YOLO. That was a waste of time. Our next question comes from Brendan, who recently got mustard on his shirt.
In recent months, there has been some debate as to the veracity of the holiday icon known as Santa Claus. Where do you stand?
Thank you for that question, Brian. First, let's be clear. Santa is real, irrefutably real. He forms the very bedrock of both our belief system and our candy-based economy. Nevertheless, it is time for serious reform for all things Kringle. His jolly demeanor notwithstanding, Mr. Claus outsources hundreds of good American jobs overseas to his North Pole sweatshops that violate our entire compendium of elven labor laws. This is a man whose reindeer-powered aerial transport is both unsanctional and blatantly PETA non-compliant. And given the growing obesity epidemic, should we ignore with his impudent disregard of the food pyramid? With milk and cookies alone, he exceeds the recommended daily value of saturated fat by 5,000%. In summary, Santa is real, yes, but not immune to regulatory scrutiny. Mr. Claus is not, and has never been, too big to fail.
A vote for Caitlin is a vote against free toys.
The next question comes from Brendan, whose favorite candy is all candy.
We live in a difficult time with difficult challenges. With that in mind, how many jumbo marshmallows can you fit in your mouth?
Fine.
Thanks.
Next question comes from Brendan, who really loves horsies.
I am always picked last for kickball. Under your administrations, will I ever not be picked last?
Brendan, you raise a critical point. How can we as a recess community flourish if we don't lend a helping hand to the Brendan? That is why, under my administration, kickball rosters will be automatically selected by a sophisticated computer algorithm, aka science, which will ensure that everyone gets a chance to be picked first. Everyone.
Well, where I come from, we call that way of thinking hogwash or malarkey or stupid dumb pants. Folks, the fact is some people are just awful at kickball. And maybe things would be different if we were in Russian playing communism ball, but we're playing kickball in America. And in America, do we pick LeBron James last in the NBA draft? No, because that would be stupid dumb pants. We'll always pick LeBron James first in basketball, just like we'll always pick Jenny Friedman first for kickball. Why? Because Jenny Friedman is the best at kicking the ball.
The next question comes from Brian, whose Halloween costume was a robot and it looked totally real.
How would you describe your school spirit? The reason I ask is because, simply, I've got spirit. Yes, I do. I've got spirit. How about you?
That's a fine question. If anyone has Crazytown elementary pride, it's me. As you know, our mascot is the northern elephant seal, which I proudly display here on my lapel. Ryan, as I look around to the rest of the student body, I see so much northern elephant sea pride and, oh my goodness, I'm only now noticing that my opponent doesn't wear a lapel pin. How fascinating. I guess school pride isn't for everyone.
Isn't it compelling that my opponent must overcompensate with outward appearance because of his inner lack of school spirit? A person's true spirit isn't here, but in here. I don't flaunt my school's pride on the outside. It's what's on the inside that counts. And by inside, I'm of course referring to this elephant seal handkerchief in my pocket. As you can see, it's noticeably larger than my opponent's lapel pin.
Folks, we know that spirit isn't about size, but about quantity. I don't only just wear one pin, but another 10 right here.
I have so much school pride. Northern Elephant Field is my middle name. And I mean that literally, as my name has been legally changed to Caitlin Northern Elephant Field Parker.
Ladies and gentlemen, my ringtone.
Alas, my opponent just played the call of the Western Elephant Seal. The Northern Elephant Seal actually sounds like "Rah! Rah, rah."
If my opponent had true school pride, she would bark in the traditional crane neck and sand flappy motion like this. Ah, ah, ah.
While I can appreciate my opponent's valiant effort at an impression, it will pale in comparison to the real thing. Bring on the field, Stan. What's that? Seriously? Oh. Folks, well, the live Northern Elephant Seal I captured for you all this morning is somehow unable to join us. He will always be with me right here, which is, if you recall, where I keep this handkerchief. Feel pride.
Let the record show that my opponent murdered a seal.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of today's debate, which means it's time for closing statements. Caitlin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sophia. Do you want a candidate? When you sit down and really think, what qualities do you want in a president? Do you want a me-first megalomaniac? Do you want a candidate whose entire Get Out the Vote campaign revolved around not only cupcake bribes, but triple chocolate cupcake bribes? And do you want the kind of person who drinks from the water fountain in that weird way where they stick their entire mouth on the fountain? Or do you want a leader who leads with leadership? The choice is yours. It's in your hands, your tiny, underdeveloped hands.
Eddie, your closing statement?
I'll put a snow cone machine in every class.
And with that, we reach the end of today's debate. On behalf of the entire student body, I'd like to thank both candidates for a highly informative conversation. May the best candidate win. That being said, all past elections were decided by who fit more marshmallows in their mouth. Congratulations to our presumptive new president, Eddie Grantwood.